Bruchim habayim. Thank you very much for inviting me. I want to share with everyone a pirush of Rashi in the Parsha. The Rashi's pirush seems to be so important to Rashi that he says the same pirush in three different places, three consecutive parshas. Parshas Kisisa, Parshas Vayakhel, Parshas Kudei. If you want to find them, you can find them because they're always in the same place, right before Sheni. The pasuk says, it's talking about the Mishkan, and it talks about the Big Day Hasrod, the Big Day Hasrod, and the problem is going to be we don't know what that is. There's Big Day HaKodesh L'Aaron HaKayin, there's Big Day Banav L'Chahein. So the Big Day Hasrod, the Rishonim have a difficulty with what exactly they are. So many of them Rishonim say that it means the Big Day Kuna. Rashi comes and he's going to negate that pirush. And he says there are two proofs that it can't be the Big Day HaKuna. Number one, because the pasuk says clearly, it's Big Day Hasrod, there's Big Day HaKodesh L'Aaron HaKayin, there's Big Day Banav L'Chahein. So the Big Day Kuna are mentioned afterwards, so this can't be in Big Day Kuna. Second of all, Rashi says, in Parshas Pekudei, the pasuk says that the Big Day Hasrod are made from Tchelis, Argomen, Telas, Shani. And it leaves out Sheish. Rashi says there are no Big Day Kuna that have Tchelis, Argomen, Shani without Sheish. Either they have everything, or they only have one or the other. But you don't have these three. Therefore, Rashi says you have to be a detective, so to speak, and find, where do we find in the Torah begodim, or some begodim, kalim, or something that has Tchelis, Argomen, Shalash, Shani without Sheish. And Rashi says you find that only in the end of Parshas Bamidbar, where it's talking about Klal Yisrael traveling, and they had to cover the kalim with cloth to protect it while they're traveling. And different kalim were covered with different types of cloth. Some were tchelis cloth, some were garment cloth, some were talash shani cloth, and none of them were covered with sheish. So Rashi says, well, that's pretty obvious then, that the Big Day Hasrod were those begodim that are mentioned over there. Okay, and Rashi's proven his point, and it's wonderful. The question that comes up is, the challenge is, in the Mishnah in Maseches Sukkah, on Daf Nun Aleph Amud Aleph, when it talks about the beautiful preparations they made for the Simchas Beis HaSheva, and they had lamps that were very tall lamps, and they had big bowls of oil, and they had to burn them with wicks. So the Mishnah says, where did they get the wicks from? They recycled baloi michnesei kahanim, the worn out pants of the kahanim, umehem yaneim, and the garto, the avnate of the kahanim, and they wove them, or they twisted them, and they made wicks out of them. Okay, Rashi, when he explains the Mishnah, Rashi says, from the Michnaseim of the Big Day Hasrod, Shahayu Mishal Tzibur, Mevniteim. From the Michnaseim of the Big Day Hasrod. So Rashi's calling the Michnaseim Big Day Hasrod? That can't be. Because Rashi himself proved that Big Day Hasrod does not mean the Big Day Kuna, it means something else. So Rashi contradicted himself. Now, if you look in the Ois V'Hada Gemaras, they bring that someone goes and he makes a Hagah in the Rashi. He can't solve the problem, so he says, Mimichna say Big Day HaKodesh Shahay Mishal Tzibur. He changed the word Big Day Hasrod to Big Day HaKodesh. Okay, that's one way of solving the problem. However, the Aruch LaNer comes and he solves the problem with a Yesod Gadol. And that Yesod is, if you go back to the Rashi and Chumash, and the Ramban who argues, one of the Ramban's strongest arguments against Rashi is that if you look in the Sugya in the end of Maseches Yuma, the Gemara there clearly says that Big Day Hasrod were the Big Day Kuna. So Rashi forgot the Gemara, or is ignoring the Gemara. So that was the kasha that the Ramban asks on Rashi. And that kasha the Aruch LaNer says is really the answer to what's going on. And that is that we have a Yesod Gadol Ad Moed, that Rashi explains everything api pshuta shel mikra. And therefore there are two ways of explaining. There's api pshuta shel mikra, and api pshuta shel mikra, Rashi goes and says it means the begodim of traveling. But there's another way of explaining, like the Messiah of Chazal, the Kabbalah of Chazal. And the Kabbalah of Chazal is like the Ramban said in the Gemara in Yuma, that it means the Big Day Kahanim. So when Rashi is learning Chumash, he explains api pshuta shel mikra. When Rashi is learning Gemara, he explains it api the Messiah of the Gemara. That's what the Aruch LaNer says in Maseches Sukkah, and that teaches us a big Yesod. Now the truth is, this big Yesod is written in Rashi himself. Because Rashi in Parshas Kisisa, when he first explains this, he says, Omer Ani, he gives an introduction. Rashi doesn't always give introductions. Here he gives an introduction. Omer Ani, I say, Lefi Pshuta Shemikra, that according to Pshuta Shemikra, Big Strud mean the traveling cloth. Why did he add those words? Because he agreed. Yes, according to the Gemara, it means something else. But now we're learning Pshuta Shemikra, and this is where we see the Yesod Gadol of Rashi's Pirush being based on Pshuta Shemikra. While that we're here, the fact that this week is Shabbos Mevorchim Chodesh Adar Sheni, it's 2 weeks before Shabbos Mevorchim, 2 weeks before Purim. Just want to share a small thought about Purim, that is all the Mefarshim are bothered the name of the Yontif of Purim. Number one, the pasuk says that Purim al Shem HaPur Hu HaGoyrol, that it's called Purim because of the Goyrol. So we have two shilas. Number one, the Goyrol that Haman made seems to be a side point. That's just the way he decided what day he was going to make his Gzeira on. Okay, so why the whole Yontif is based on the Goyrol? And second of all, if you're based on the Goyrol, so called the Yontif Goyrol. Why are we calling it Pur? Okay, so just a word, but it's a 1 minute word that you can come away with something. One of the Visions Rebbeim from Europe said as follows, that if you take the word pur, pei, vav, resh, and you spell it out with the milui, in other words, you spell the letters pei, pei aleph, vav, vav yud vav, resh, resh yud shin. If you spell it out, you come to a gematria of 613. Now, this is a very important lesson because we all know that on Purim was Hodar Kiblu b'Me'ach HaShverish. We're makabel the Taryag Mitzvahs again, anew and afresh, and that's why the Yontif is called Purim, because that's the avodah of the Yontif, to be makabel the Torah with it full Kabbalah. Okay, that's Pur, but the Yontif is called Purim. So Purim, you add a Yud and a Vav, a Yud and a Mem. Yud is spelled Yud Vav Dalid, which is 20. Mem is spelled Mem Mem, which is 80. So you're adding 100 to 613 is now 713. Now 613, we all know what it is. 713, most of us are not familiar with. But the Vision Rebbe was. 713 is the gematria of tshuva, which comes to tell us that the avodah of Klal Yisrael in Purim was to go do tshuva for the chatoim that caused Haman's gzeira, and we do tshuva and we makabel the Taryag Mitzvahs anew and afresh, and that's the avodah of Purim haba aleinu l'taiva. Yashikayich, thank you very, very much.